This is about giving us a way to protect our nervous system so that it doesn't carry us into overdrive and
Yeah.
we feel like we're in constant panic and stress and we move into like the manic space. It's about a commitment to being intentional about how we show up and really all coming back to the practice of agency.
There's this idea that energy travels faster than the facts. And so,
Oh my gosh,
like,
that's
this
so good.
kind of
Can you say
feeds
that
into
again?
that. Energy travels faster than facts. So we're going to, like, all of that stress, all of that unknowing, all of the what we are experiencing, we start putting off. And as we try to search for the facts and try to seek to better understand what is happening, we're still having that hard time like regulating our own thoughts, feelings, and opinions because we don't have all the facts yet. But that doesn't stop that energy from still, a ripple effect. It just starts going out.
Have you ever had a moment where you knew exactly what you were supposed to do and still didn't have it in you to do it? Today on Chris and Jen in the Morning, we're talking about capacity. What happens when life stacks up, emotions run high, and even the tools that usually help you feel just out of reach. This episode isn't about fixing yourself or responding perfectly. It's about recognizing when you're overwhelmed, giving yourself permission to just be human, and understand that awareness doesn't always come with great energy. If you've ever thought, I know better, so why is it still so hard? This conversation is for you. Let's get into it.
Welcome to Chris and Jen in the Morning.
Where self-care meets real life.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Jen. We're so excited to have you with us today.
So our conversation today is around this idea that the world can be a lot and feelings can be heavy.
But we get to choose our own energy. You can own your energy without digging your head into the sand and like hiding from reality of what is
Right.
going on. We don't, though, have to be controlled by what is going on around us. We can choose how we want to show up in our day. So if you are feeling like you can't open your phone without instantly starting to feel like you are being drugged down, like your shoulders slump a little bit more, just this general heaviness that's happening in our world right now, then this might be for you. This conversation might be for you.
So we would love for you to listen along. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, comment wherever you're listening, and follow us on our socials. And this helps build our community.
Yeah, absolutely. We decided to bring these conversations to this podcast format because we really wanted to create a community that we can all come together and support each other. And especially in times like these, where not just in the US, but really it's impacting beyond the US. In the world, there's a lot of heaviness happening right now. And that really takes away from our ability to enjoy these moments we have here on Earth. So, Chris, let's talk about gratitude.
Yeah, so my gratitude moment this week is you have spoken a lot of positivity over me the last couple of weeks, which is just super helpful, and I doubt you know that you're doing it, but I appreciate it. Whenever you see me, whenever you appreciate the smile that I bring, the vibrance that you capture in a photo, and the nice things you say, it goes a long ways. And some days you've said it in times when I didn't even know I needed it, but it just like made my heart smile and it's made me feel good. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. It's so easy to compliment you. You are amazing and you are adorable. And thank you, by the way, for posing for some photos for me. That was really, really fun. So we are on a shared wavelength because my gratitude this week is for you and Ace and getting to spend time with the two of you at PodFest in Orlando. We had some great learning and, met some people and all of that was amazing. But when I think about like, what am I the most grateful for coming out of that experience? It was the three of us getting to really spend quality time together, taking time out of our whatever we have going on to come together and learn, invest in what we're doing here with each other. Like it doesn't have to be hard work to just get to enjoy it. I loved that we went to different sessions and kind of did downloads with each other, that we made space for what each other were thinking, that we came out of it with like all of these great ideas about how we want to grow and evolve and things that we want to apply. Like, it would not have been something that I would be like saying, oh my gosh, this was such an amazing experience if we didn't get to do it together. So just huge thanks to both of you for, being my ride or dies.
It was a great time. It flew by. I remember getting there and saying, we have 4 days with one another. And then that 4 days was like a blink of an eye.
A blink of an eye. It was so fast. I kept going, oh my gosh, it's almost over, because that's so me. We also just need to give a shout out to Ron. Hey, Ron from Orlando. We got to meet you while we were there, and I hope you got a snack. I hope that you found a snack. I'm sorry I didn't have one to share, but it was just a real joy getting to talk to you and meeting you and learning a little bit about you. And I just want to let you know that you left a big, positive, meaningful impression on me. So, sending you lots of love and light. So, today, what we really want to focus on is knowing that things are heavy at times and we can't control the world around us. How do we still get the most out of life and enjoy the life that we're living and still stay connected to what's going on? So, we're not talking about like toxic positivity, denying what's happening in the world, pretending that we're fine when we're really not. I mean, if a woman ever says to you that she's fine, this is probably not true. Or that we just don't care about what's going on,
Yeah.
because you can care deeply and still be able to have those boundaries about your experience through life. So, what this really is about is that we get a choice in how we respond to the situations happening around us, whether they're like at a macro scale or things just, keep going wrong in our own lives. That this is about giving us a way to protect our nervous system so that it doesn't carry us into overdrive and
Yeah.
we feel like we're in constant panic and stress and we move into like the manic space. It's about a commitment to being intentional about how we show up, and really all coming back to the practice of agency. I'm a big believer in reminding myself that I have agency over myself, which means that I get to choose how I feel, what I think, and how I act. And nobody else has that power but me. So I
Yeah.
often give it away freely, but I get to take it back.
Yeah. And whenever you brought up this idea of owning your energy, I know at first I was like, well, what do you mean by this? And so we kind of dug into it a little bit more, but it's really like that, I acknowledge the reality that I am in. I'm honoring those feelings that I am experiencing, and I'm still choosing how I choose to show up. And
Yeah.
I appreciate you like bringing this topic up because I had never really like framed it in that way before. But in that instance, like it does feel like, oh yeah, I do have a little bit more control than what
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, this is something I've really been struggling with recently, really just like this last year. I feel like it's been escalating. I stopped watching the news and tried to protect my little peace, but then just kind of checking in now and again. And then things got to a point where I felt like I couldn't stop watching the news anymore. But then I just feel like scared and angry and frustrated about
Yeah.
the division that seems to be going on and the tone of conversation everywhere and how we can't seem to, figure out how to talk about values and not make them into politics and, like let's just come together because there's so much we agree on. And then just continuing to see how things have devolved. This is something that I felt like I really need to talk about this because I have to process this. So
Yeah.
come on the journey with us. And we would love to hear how you show up for yourself in this way. But I definitely, like, even this morning, it was time to get up. And I was like, I just want to stay in bed today. I don't want to get up. Um, it feels like a heavy day. I don't want to get up today. And here I am. I got up. We're having this conversation. Let's start with like what's happening here. So we've talked a lot about how our brains are not wired for happiness. They're
Right.
wired for survival, especially whether it's something kind of in your own little world within your life that's going wrong. People say things, happen in threes, but like often it's just we're on edge and we're like looking for the other
Right.
things. Or have you ever been in that place? I know I have, where I start collecting all of the things that are going wrong in my life, and I'm like talking about them, and they just seem heavier and
Right.
heavier and heavier. I think back to like when our house burned down. I mean, that was really, really, really hard. There were also a lot of things that came out of that that I can be I can look back on and be grateful for. I'm never going to be grateful that my house burned down, to be very clear. That was horrible. Nor do I think you should ever, feel like you have to be grateful for something tragic that happened.
Yeah.
That's toxic positivity. But like the way that my neighbors showed up for me, I am really grateful for that. So even in this place of like really tough stuff, there are still things that I can choose to focus on and choose to channel while still acknowledging like this is tough.
Right. And like this is like your brain is not broken. It's doing
Yeah.
exactly what it has evolved to do. And when things do feel unstable, our brains do go into this like watch out mode where
Yeah.
it is trying to scan the different scenarios we're in and the different areas that we're like operating in to find those threats and to protect us, preparing us for what may come at us. I think back to when I first moved to New York. The first year here was really, really tough. And
Yeah.
like I can very easily go back and like list those and,
All the things that were
right,
like going wrong. Yeah.
exactly. But then recently, because I just celebrated my 10 years here, like I really like looked back on the things that I had learned. And
Yeah.
that took more thought. Like it really took more time to go through those things and like, yes, this was a negative thing, but here's what I learned from it. Our brain doesn't naturally flip to that learning and those like how to reframe this. It just immediately goes for what's the thing that's potentially a threat and how do I protect
Well, yeah,
myself?
absolutely. That threat scanning, it's like when you're watching a movie or a TV show and the ominous music starts to play, all of a sudden you're like doing the threat scanning of what's going to happen because that's a cue or a signal. Well, in life, like you're in that mode where you're in threat scanning. And so what you see are all of those things that are like harmful because your brain is trying to prepare you to be not surprised by them and be able to deal with them. The problem is that you get out of balance because then the only thing you have the space to see are those hard things. And it is not about ignoring the hard things, it is about balance and remembering that there are hard things. And then there are also things that can give us a break from those hard things that can be a positive space that can lift us up. So, and the whole point here is just to be able to spend more of your time enjoying this life if for no other reason. Like that is why we're chasing this. There's also this like worst case forecasting that our brain does. And
I'm very
I
familiar with that.
know that we've played this game. We love to play the worst case scenario game. So if I think about that in like present day and things that are going on, I see a lot of this happening in social posts and I kind of get pulled into this too sometimes where we list only the worst case outcome, even if, that is a potential real outcome and we don't list the other possibilities. So what I call this is we should be playing the what else could be true game. And when I am on top of it and the most intentional and at my best, I am good at playing the what else can be true game, but I'm much better at doing it for other people than I am for myself. We'll
Well,
talk
I
about
was
that.
just about to say like that's like if you I already know that that's not a strength for me. Find someone that it is a strength for and make sure you include them.
Yeah. Find your silver lining, folks. Or like sometimes you do need somebody else to help you with that. We'll talk about that a little bit too. And then this like urgency mode. So when you perceive threats, your brain is helping you get into this place where you quickly address the threat before it addresses you. And so we have this like, it's that fight or flight mechanism that happens inside of you where you start to feel like, oh my gosh, I have to do something about this right now. So, like, especially for someone like me who is really action oriented, super uncomfortable spending time thinking about my feelings. I just want to resolve my feelings by acting and then getting rid of it. There are things that just are not solvable quickly. And yet we have this like urgency to quickly do something and make it go away. And so I think, that is something that's really important to be aware of, that that's at play in what's going on inside of your brain. So I think you said it, your brain is not broken. It's doing exactly what we have evolved to be doing. And just remember, it doesn't care if you're happy, it cares if you're safe. When the world is feeling unstable and your brain goes into this watchdog mode, it's scanning, it's forecasting, it's preparing you for impact. What's really going on inside the brain?
Well, I mean, we've spoken about it many of times, but our good friend the amygdala is
Love
being
that guy.
immediately triggered, and I love the way that this came up. It's like it's a smoke alarm, right? Like
Yeah.
the whole idea behind a smoke alarm is to make you aware of the potential threat. And
Yeah.
so that is exactly what our amygdala does. It clicks on and it starts pumping all of those hormones into us to protect us. Whether that protect is fight or flight could be different to each of us.
Yeah, and when you're in that place where the amygdala is really lighting up, it is pulling all of your attention towards the scary information. So, like what you are seeing out your windshield is all the scary stuff. You're not seeing the other angles of the car where there could be the not scary stuff, but all you see is this doom and this impending doom. Like, I think that's the best way to describe it sometimes. And so, I think understanding the context behind that is really important so that we remind ourselves, okay, if it looks like all I see is impending doom, that might be because that is what my brain is doing from a survival standpoint. So let's take a step back. So these are like cues that maybe it's time to take a deep breath and step back and say, okay, do I need to reframe how I'm thinking about this? Doesn't mean that you are gaslighting yourself into believing that what you're seeing is not true. It's not about that. It's just about understanding where your brain is placing you.
Right. And I think it's really important here. Like, the problem isn't that it reacts. Like, again, the brain is doing exactly what it is meant to be doing. It's that it doesn't always wait for that context to catch up with
Yeah.
it to provide a little bit more of that, like, surrounding picture that will help bring clarity to, what could I be doing? What else could be true? Those types of things.
Yeah, I always have found that when I'm able to put myself into more of a kind of level headed approach, I make smarter choices. And when I am in the midst of like a panic response to a situation, I tend to get swept up by my emotions. And then I
Uh-huh.
have more moments where I go, ooh, I really wish I would have done this, this, and that. And so I think the point here about acknowledging what's going on inside the brain is not to say that you're overreacting to what's going on, because that's not it. It's not to say that you're too focused on the wrong or the bad and not seeing it for what it is, because you might be seeing the reality. It might just be really bad. It's just about understanding where you are, and are you being carried away by what's going on in your brain from a reaction standpoint? Or are you in a place where you could kind of pull yourself back, put yourself back in control of then how you respond?
Yeah, when we were at Podfest, I sat in on a session where I can't remember who the speaker was, but I remember them talking about decision making. And have you ever like thought back in your life on a decision you made and been like, I made that decision? Did like I said that's what I wanted to do? And
Yeah.
they connected it to that is likely you making a quick decision based on how your brain is firing and your survival mode being kind of kicked in.
Yeah. So if you're not liking that, you just feel like everything is just really heavy, then these are some of the things to kind of think about. Where are you at in that space? I think, and then to just be kind to yourself, because this is nature. Sometimes it gets into overdrive, but you can pull yourself back from the path of amygdala hijack. And so understanding awareness is key. Name it to tame it. We'll talk about that in a minute. There's also a stress response shift that pushes you into this survival mode. And when your nervous system is really activated, we get more irritable. We get more into the doom thinking, where we can only think about the worst case scenario. We have way less patience. We're less creative. So that like problem solving and MacGyvering your way out of a situation, like do you find yourself saying, but what do I do? I don't know what to do. What do I do? Like, who's got the answer? What do I do? And then what we do is just talk about the problem, the problem, the problem. And we don't get into that. okay, but like, let's take action. What do we do? And you just have less hope. And I know we talked about hope and resilience a few weeks ago. So um, if you haven't, give that one a listen. I think that was a really good conversation. So when we're flooded by all of this, our brain gets less flexible and it becomes harder to see that perspective. And it's not that you're bad. It's not that you're doing it wrong. It's not, any of those things. This is just what is happening. And I think
Yeah.
being aware of that helps us understand why we're in the place we are and how to move into a place where we can get back into control or give ourselves back the agency.
Yeah, it's almost like we get painted into like this corner where we have a little less patience for ourselves because we don't want to be in this scenario. Like you said, the creativity and solutions oriented problem solving seems a bit out of grasp. And then we also become like less generous, like this idea of being impatient. We want a solution now. We don't want to be here. And like that all feeds into those feelings of stress, which just keeps those hormones flowing that,
It
you know.
does. Yeah, and so then when we find ourselves here, like emotional contagion is real, and that happens both for yourself and for the people that are around you. So the more we consume panic, the more our brain predicts panic, and we get into this cycle because that's just what we're consuming, it's what we're seeing.
Yeah.
And so it's the only outcome that's in front of us. We spend most of our attention in that driver's view window and not in the rear view window or out the side mirrors, right?
Yeah.
It's what you're focused on that then becomes this like repeated pattern. And so we start to create this reality for ourselves. It's like when I get nervous, and then I'm nervous about being awkward. And then I'm thinking so much about being awkward that I feel really awkward. And then the more awkward I feel, the more awkward I am, the more awkward everyone else around me feels. And then somebody just has to rescue me, which you're really good at doing, by the way.
Well, I do think like this is an interesting, and I know people will likely have all different thoughts, feelings, and opinions about this, but I think this is like where people who are empathetic, people who like pick up on energy and are driven by those types of things, which I consider myself to be, like,
Yeah.
I do feel it. Like I can usually feel or sense somebody's like what's going on before they even say anything to me. And there's this idea that energy travels faster than the facts. And so
Oh my gosh,
like
that's
this
so good.
kind
Can
of
you say
feeds
that
into
again?
that. Energy travels faster than facts. So
Yeah.
we're going to like all of that stress, all of that unknowing, all of the what we are experiencing, we start putting off. And as we try to search for the facts and try to seek to better understand what is happening, we're still having that hard time like regulating our own thoughts, feelings,
Yeah.
and opinions because we don't have all the facts yet. But that doesn't stop that energy from still, a ripple effect. It just starts going out.
Yeah. Well, and you talk about like being an empath and like in the sense of just, you know, connecting from a feeling standpoint. And somebody who I love very dearly said to me yesterday, my greatest strength is my greatest weakness in that I just care too much. And I said, whoa, 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 hold on. First of all, not a fan of that phrasing because your strengths are your strengths, they're not your weaknesses. This is just about boundaries, which we'll talk about in a future episode. So stay tuned for for the highlights on that. But this feeling so deeply is not the problem. That's a strength to be able to have empathy and to feel. It is about then getting carried away by your feelings
Right.
and allowing those to dictate where you stay, what you ruminate on, how you act, how you move forward, what you tell yourself inside your head. I think not only does it affect ourselves and the cycle that we get into, but it also affects how we show up when we interact with other people and the people around us. We absorb each other's energy. So if
Uh-huh.
you're spending a lot of time around somebody who is stuck in this cycle, you probably notice that it starts to pull you down.
Right.
If this is how you are showing up, you might notice that it's starting to rub off. And what happens, especially when we get on social, like somebody is panicked and all of a sudden we're picking up on that panic energy. And then like we get panicked and we just kind of get carried away by the ocean of panic.
Yeah.
And so I think being aware that that is happening, we unconsciously mirror tone, facial expressions, urgency sense, stress levels. Like we adjust to the other person. And that works both ways. This emotional contagion or co regulation is the other side of that. It can work to our advantage. But in order for it to be an advantage, you have to put yourself back in the driver's seat, give yourself agency, and say, what is it that I choose instead of what am I allowing to be chosen for me?
Yep. So how do we do that? Because if we are on this, let's just call it a runaway car. Let's stick with the car analogy. How do we take back control of this car that is going on a rampage?
Well, the first thing you have to do is pull the emergency brake, and that is naming it to tame it. And we talk about this a lot. This is a theme. So this is like one of, I think, the core strategies for being able to live a happier life
Yeah.
is awareness. I always say awareness is the first step, but name it to tame it. Before we can choose the energy we want, we have to stop fighting what's already bubbling up. And that does not mean ignoring it. It does not mean that toxic positivity. Sometimes you do have to fake it until you make it, but that's not what this is about.
Yeah.
This
Well,
is
I
about
do like this takes me back to that conversation that we had about like having conflicting feelings. Like
yeah.
in that day, I was feeling so many different things, and I just remember texting you like, "Oh my gosh, I don't like there is so much happening. I don't have the time to like process all of this. It feels very heavy." And I just remember your advice was like, you first like acknowledge what is happening. Like, what are you feeling? What are you experiencing? Don't ignore it. Don't push it down, but like figure out like what it is that you're feeling. So that way you can then start to wrap your arms around it. Not your
Yeah.
exact language, but the sentiment.
And yeah, and it sounds like such an easy thing to do, but I mean it's not. It's often not easy because a lot of times what's easier, at least for me, is what am I thinking? How am I acting?
Right.
But to really sit down and think about like, what am I feeling? I'm feeling sadness. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling afraid. I'm grieving. It's really important to just give yourself the few minutes to stop, get quiet, and reflect.
Yeah.
And if you have to go physically put yourself in a different space, I do this best when I am in motion. So for me, to stop and get quiet means to go for a walk and not listen to anything, not call anybody, but just to have that space where I'm moving. So that kind of helps me process through the anxiety of, getting in touch with my feelings. But then I really can think through things a little bit better. So it
Yeah.
helps keep me focused. But find what works for you. But just, it doesn't have to be like I go away for a weekend by myself.
Right.
Like this can be take 5 minutes, shut yourself in the bathroom and like just think. But give yourself a minute to get in touch with what is it that you're really feeling? Because once you name them, it starts to turn down the intensity. So once they have a name, then you can start to put them in their place and then decide what you want. So it may be I'm feeling sad and I want to be sad. That's how I want to show up right now. And that's okay. But if you're thinking, like if you're in the space where you're thinking, man, I just feel really heavy. I don't even want to get out of bed. Like you might actually be going, but I want to be happy. I know that you might even be thinking it feels unfair to be happy right now because there's something so big happening. You do deserve to be happy. We deserve happiness. And it's not unfair to find your happy moments in balance with those other feelings. And I think that's really important. It's all about not just seeing the toxicity that's happening, but also seeing the bright spots.
Right.
Because if you don't have both, like, how are you going to keep moving forward?
Right. And I think it's really important to understand here it's not about pretending that you feel a certain way or that
Yeah.
you're trying to absorb a different like feeling. It's truly about deciding what I want to put out there. Like what is, as we talk about that co-regulation, like am I wanting this to be what others are going to
Yeah.
potentially co-regulate with?
So, as an example, and we'll make this something a little easier to digest or relate to. I had a work situation many years ago where something happened that was really bad, and I didn't do it, but I was in charge of the
Just to be
problem.
clear,
Just
I
to be clear,
didn't do
I
it.
didn't do it, but I was in charge of the whole thing. And it was like really bad in that kind of way where you have, from a regulatory standpoint, you have to like report things to regulatory agencies and start contacting people. Like you gotta, your dirty laundry is going to get aired. And in the space that I was working in, like this was a threat to reputation. And so for me, the more I like kind of thought about it, the more like I was starting to kind of panic. And then I said, okay, so let's pause. I cannot do anything about the situation that happened. And there will be a time to figure out like accountability. That is not right now. Right now, we need to stop the threat, figure out like what we can do from this point forward. And I had to go in and sit down with our chief legal counsel. And I mean, if that's not intimidating, like what is? Lovely human. This person was like, did not have a relationship with her, and having to go sit down with chief legal counsel and tell them the project that you own, something got totally screwed up and you got to contact regulatory agency. Probably one of the most nerve-wracking conversations I've had in my life. But I went in and I said, before I went in, I said, okay, so what I don't want to do is panic. I want to be able to present the options and get advice. I want to have calm energy. So calm is what I chose. I'm not going to be panicked. I'm going to be calm and I'm going to just lay out what happened and here are the facts and we need to fix it. And so I need your advice. And I went in, we had the conversation. And after we were done with the conversation, as I was leaving, she put her hand on my arm and she said, I just want you to know, like, you are the calmest person. That was the easiest conversation to have. I just really appreciate how you showed up. And like, I will tell you, if I went in there the way that I wanted, the way that my body wanted me to go in there, like, it was not calm. And for her to say, oh, you're just so calm, I was like, well, that is not feedback I get quite often.
So thank you for that.
But it helped us get to a place where, you know what, like nobody lost their job. Nobody's heads rolled. Nobody, like, she was so much more calm because I was calm.
Yeah.
So we were able to get to the business of how do we protect the company, protect the people, do what is right, follow the laws. How do we get to next and like fix the situation? And then what are we going to do to make sure that this never happens again?
Right.
Because sometimes those things happen, right? And so, I think that for me is like a really relatable example that I look back on and say, okay, wait, I have done this before. So it's possible for me to not feel calm, choose that I want to be calm, and then start stepping into that energy.
Yeah.
And then my calm creates calm. So what I get back is more calm. And it's a different cycle, it's a positive cycle.
Exactly.
Whereas, you know, other times, when things have gone wrong, like somebody's yelling and then other people are yelling and then everybody's stressed. And, you know, I much prefer the first
Well, I think in those
conversation.
times it is very easy for those emotions and those people start to express how they feel in a way. And as you talk about people picking up on energy and starting, like, it does create that domino effect. And so it does impact others. And I think what's really important here, and I'm glad you said it because you have that spot to anchor back to.
Yeah.
We don't always control how we feel.
Yeah.
But we can control the energy that we choose to amplify. And so really taking that time to say, well, this is how I'm feeling, but is this what I want for whomever I'm going into this meeting with or whatever thing I'm trying to fix or influence? Like, is that the energy I want to bring to this space? And is it going to be helpful or is it going to potentially, pull it back? And I think in the current state of the world, none of us control the world. It is beyond all of us, but we can control what we are contributing to it. And I think that's the part for me that I try to be mindful of. And I have my safe people that I can truly have my expressive moments with, which we will talk about in a little bit. But it is to me, how do I want to show up in spaces? And what do I want to contribute is a really important factor to think through.
Yeah, I mean, just because I'm not known for being a calm person doesn't mean I don't have the capacity to show up in a calm way. May take a lot of energy for me to do that intentionally, but it did positively impact the outcome of the situation. It
Yep.
de-escalated. And then what happened is after that conversation, all of that like stuff that was going on in my brain with the like threat identification and the worst case scenario and the oh my gosh, the all that noise as soon as that conversation was done and we had a path forward was way turned down because now it's like we're past the that climax in the story. We're
Right.
past the friction point and we're moving into, okay, let's fix it
Yeah.
mode. And I think that's really important is knowing the arc of everything. Every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And then, a new story starts, right?
Right.
And so I think it's important to remember like the intensity ramps up when you're at that friction point. But if you can manage or choose what energy you want to keep leaning into during that inflection point, then, you might just enjoy the journey a little more.
Right. Well, and I think this is like where I don't know if you've heard this saying, but like I just match the energy I'm given. Like I don't think that that's necessarily the way we should be showing up because
Unless you're choosing what kind of energy you're being given. When you just get on social, though, it's like roll the dice, and they're
it's very
probably
true.
weighted to the negative sometimes,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
So, like, how do you act in alignment with that energy that you're choosing? That may seem kind of abstract to you if you're anything like me. It's thinking about how you speak, what word choices you use, the tone that you're using, the speed at which you speak. So, when I say I went into that meeting with the intention of trying to channel calm, where I'm normally a fidgeter, I was really spending a lot of energy on trying to be still, trying to sit up straight, trying to speak not with excitement, but slowly with a calming tone of voice. When I was listening, it was listening patiently, letting the pauses hang, just kind of slowing things down, thinking about what you're posting on social, what you're tolerating, what you're repeating. Just because somebody says it and you feel it doesn't mean you have to say it. That
Right.
also doesn't mean that you have to be silent. But what is it that what kind of energy do you want to bring forward? So when there's tension, generally what I want out of things that are in tension is to bring forward a kind energy. Now, that doesn't mean that I always instantly feel kind. In fact, I think to the two of you, I said something yesterday where I was like, all right, that was really not on brand with my kind energy. It does not mean that every thought I have is always kind. It means that what I choose to move forward with intentionally is kind. Like what
Yeah.
I want to put out there is kindness. Does not mean that I'm always kind. And, like who can be always kind, right? My shirt, by the
It's
way,
not
says
positive.
be kind. So I am in part channeling this kind energy I want to bring in what I'm choosing to wear. So, you don't control the world, just like you said, but you control what you contribute to it. So let's talk about co regulation. What does that mean?
Well, so this is what I found super interesting as we were talking about this was because to me it is again I get the energy and as we were talking about like you know the energy that you bring and don't let it steal your energy like all of that stuff to me was always like things that I felt but I had never this may be why you and I get along so well because I have the feelings, you have the thoughts, and then together we
Together we
bring it
make a
all.
whole. We make a whole person together.
But it's like it's how the energy is impacting others. So, like, your nervous system can help stabilize someone else's nervous system, but it's understanding that we do carry that impact with us. And again, in the choices that we're making, are we are we turning things down or are we turning them up and being mindful of those things
Yeah.
like a calm person can actually lower a room that may be super tense or I mean we've all been in situations I think I can say we've all probably been there where we've walked in and been like okay I wasn't here for whatever awkward moment or tense moment just happened but it is still lingering here.
Yeah. Well, when you think about things that happen like natural disasters, talk about impending doom.
Yeah.
really scary situations. And when you have people who are leading the response to those with a calm sort of energy, it doesn't mean that they are not aware of or worried about what's going on. I mean, they're probably more aware than anyone else about what is going on. They respond with a steady voice to interrupt panic. And the reason that's so important is because when you're panicked, you're back in that amygdala is in charge state and you cannot really creatively problem solve. Like, how do you lead a team of response volunteers who are all in a state of panic?
Right.
That you're not going to have as effective of a response. And so that's when chaos starts to happen, right? So that steady, calm voice interrupts the panic. If you look back at like some of our historical figures over time that have been leading a movement, you notice that they speak passionately, but calmly and
Yeah.
firmly and confidently. And that is by design because you have to be able to manage that energy so that you can receive sort of what's happening. If you have somebody that's just kind of like manic talking, you're not going to be able to command the room, right?
Right.
So
Well, and the
some,
chaos can be many different things. Like, as
yeah.
we're having this conversation, I remember we were watching The West Wing, and there's an episode where a disaster does happen in a state, and the president and like some of his closest advisors like go there, and he decides that he wants to stay there longer than what was scheduled for, and he gets lost in the empathy of wanting to help people, wanting to understand what they can do to contribute and rebuild and all of these things. But what he isn't aware of is like all of the things that come along with him. They have to close down roads. They have to secure buildings. They have to move people. And he's not thinking about all of those things. And it took someone stepping in to a moment when he was bringing empathy, which people right there needed, but forgot like
All the complications.
exactly the
Yeah.
complications. And they want someone to lead. They need someone to show like that we are going to make the next steps. So I just thought like it was super interesting. Like, as we talk about this, I think it shows up a lot in ways of chaos, how we would traditionally define it as like a huge event that is upsetting or big emotions. But it can also be whenever we think we're doing the right thing and maybe it's actually not what that moment needs at that time,
Yeah,
or it extends too
absolutely.
long.
Absolutely. I think it's also really important to remember that kindness can pull somebody out of cynicism. I don't know if you've ever been having just like a terrible day and you're just in a cranky, cranky mood. And
Me? No,
and then you
never.
you interact with somebody and they just like they say something nice to you as they give you your coffee out of the
Yep.
drive-through window, or you left your keys on the bread aisle and they bring them back to you because they saw you do it, or like just little small acts of kindness have absolutely pulled me out of this like cynical, this is a bad day, and it takes a bad day and turns it around into a good day. It's contagious because then I go smile at somebody
Right.
and say something nice to them, and like it just carries forward. Hope is contagious too, and we talked a few episodes ago about hope and what hope is and what it's not. It's not silver linings and sticking your head in the sand and just believing no matter what, the outcome you want is going to happen. It's about believing that no matter what does happen, you're gonna make it. Like you'll figure it out. You're gonna be able to figure it out and make it through. That's contagious. You know,
Yeah.
it's also really contagious to think, "Oh my gosh, none of us are gonna make it. We're all gonna die." Um, you know, but we're gonna lose XYZ, and this is doom and gloom and all the things that you're hearing these days. But hope is contagious. And so if what you want is to be hopeful and you want to choose hope, know that like if you speak up and you share that in a way that's authentic, that's contagious.
I do just want to say, in the spirit of this, don't show up and not make space for the individual,
For sure.
because whatever they may be going through, seek to understand before you try and bring your contagious positivity, hope, whatever you want to call it. And I know like that is not our intent, but I do think
Yeah.
sometimes whenever people are trying to express what they are feeling, you are actually really good at this, at giving people the space to to express themselves and really seek to understand. You ask good questions that lead to like deeper understandings, and then you can gently move the conversation in another way, where I think a lot of times people are just like, oh, that's uncomfortable. You know what? You should really look for the silver lining. It's like, okay, so we're not going to acknowledge everything that I just said. We're just going to
No, you
jump
got to go through
to.
all the steps. You got to know how you feel. You got to choose what you want to feel. I think that the goal here, the goal here in this conversation is to say, you can just float down the river of emotion that life is going to take you on if that is what you choose to do.
Yeah.
But there is an alternative way to get down to the end of the river that you might enjoy better. You actually do have the ability to choose, because we do have agency, what kind of energy you're going to move forward with. It doesn't mean that because I choose calm, I always feel calm. That's not it. It's okay, I recognize this is not serving me. This is not what I need right now. Just like I said, like, choose kindness, but it does not mean that every thought I have is kind. I have unkind thoughts too, guys. Like, it's hard sometimes. But then I say, you know what, though? That's not the energy I want to bring. That's not going to
Right.
help get me to the world that I want to be living in. So I'm going to keep choosing
Right.
kindness in how I step forward. When I step forward not in kindness, I'm going to seek to not repeat that. And, if I am just feeling like I am in a space where I can't bring any kindness, then I might just be quiet. I don't want to perpetuate that energy. But I think one of the things, so that, let's get to how do you do this? Because it's hard sometimes, right? So we say name it to tame it. There's a little bit more than just naming it, but it's about noticing, like becoming aware, naming, and then choosing. So notice how you feel, name what the feeling is, and then choose how you want to feel. So like I am feeling like I'm triggered right now. This feeling that I'm feeling is fear. And I wish instead to feel grounded. I don't know, Chris, if you have an example
I mean,
there.
I think many times when I am feeling triggered, it is usually because of this. I am feeling a plethora of emotions that I don't really know what to do with them.
Mm,
Because if it's like the onesie twosies, like I'm not to say I'm a pro, but I can handle some of these feelings. But to me, when I feel most like I am losing grip of how I'm showing up, it's whenever I'm having a lot of these emotions and trying to figure out how to get everything back aligned. And so, like, for me, it is a process that I have found if I write things down, I am faster to process versus if I leave it in my head, I ruminate more.
yeah.
And so it's like we talk about, like, to be able to name it and then to make that choice, you have to, between that naming and choice, you have to break that cycle. And so to me, I break it by writing down what I'm feeling, so then I can go back and be like, okay, this is the path forward for me.
Yeah.
And everyone may, likely experience it all differently and has a different process, but I do think it's really important that we just don't ignore it and push it to the side and I'll deal with it later, because that stuff does chip away and it does truly impact.
For sure. Especially like, learning that panic attacks are anxiety that's been ignored, like unresolved anxiety produces panic attacks. So I don't get panic attacks as much anymore as I used to, but when it does happen, I have to go, "Oh my gosh. All right, I've apparently been shoving down all of my anxiety." And often I'll go in to my therapy appointment and I'll get so what's what are you thinking about? I appreciate that he starts asking what I'm thinking about instead of what I'm feeling, because I did tell him I hate that question. But I think the last time I said, well, I think that you would probably know that better than me. He's like, do you have some like unresolved anxiety, things that you're not like working through? And I'm like, well, I mean, to be honest, I don't think that I'm the best person to answer that question. And he was like, well, that's probably fair. Um,
That's why I'm here on your couch.
so we're going to dig into that. So sometimes it is hard to know how you're feeling, and sometimes you can work through it, and sometimes you need help to work through it.
Yeah.
And we are not medical professionals. We are avid users of medical professionals to help us through these times that are hard in life. And so definitely advocate that if you are feeling like you need additional help to work through something because the feelings are just bigger than what you have the capacity to manage through, like get help. There's no shame in that. That's not a bad thing. It's actually being kind to yourself to give yourself the resources to live the life that you want to live. So this next one, this is something that when I read about this, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so simple, and yet this is it's like blow my mind. Feelings are real, but they're not always instructions. So just because I feel something does not mean that that is an instruction for how I have to feel, what I have to do, what's actually happening. Most emotions will come, they will peak, and they will pass. And if we don't feed them, then that's if we don't feed them a story. But if we start adding a story to our emotions, then that feeling tends to not pass and it just kind of stays at peak. And then you just keep like ruminating on it. It's like you're
Correct.
feeding it and you're just creating the cycle.
And I
And s-
think when you're in that state, my best advice to people is start using a fact opinion method. So
yes.
your feelings are real, so let's not disregard those because we have talked about before that feelings are real and you must acknowledge them. But what is causing them to come up, and those causes, is it, can you tie it back to a fact? Can you actually say, like, someone said this action was taken, it's observable. If I were to ask multiple people, they would all say the same thing. And if it's not, if it's just based on an opinion, and I am great at this part, making it up.
Yeah.
Like, I
Well, and
am
our brains, our thoughts, like they travel faster than NASCAR cars
right,
travel around the track, right? They are like, they're just, there's so many of them and they're all coming so fast that we don't have time to always identify every single one of
right.
them. And so oftentimes when I make myself go through this exercise, which is not always comfortable because then you have to really get aware of what's going on inside that head. So sometimes you got to battle your own ego, right? But like when I ask myself, okay, what story am I making up? Usually I am making up a story that I didn't realize I was making up. So, like if I am fighting with my husband and I've usually like gotten upset about something, I've made up some story in my head about what he is saying or thinking or trying to do. And it's usually never right because he's saying or thinking or trying to do something I never could have conceived of that was actually like nice. And, we're having some disagreement about it. But I didn't know I was making up a story because your mind just fills in the blanks. And we talk about this from a work setting often, like in the absence of information, people fill in the gaps. It's just what we do. But we're so good at doing it that we don't even realize we're doing it.
Right.
So often we have this story or this narrative that we build. It might be right. It might not be right. I get it right sometimes. That's not the point. The point is, what story am I making up?
Right.
Whether it's true or not, I made it up.
Well, and this is definitely pertinent here as we're talking about, um, seeing things being triggered by stories and information that's coming in through whatever, social or news, whatever it may be. But also, like, when we get into that place of thinking back to conversations and we start like that process of ruminating on them, like a lot of times it's because of our understanding of the situation. And so really questioning yourself, like, well, why am I feeling this way? What is this feeling based on? And, at this point, is there anything I can do about it? Like,
And I
sometimes you
think
just have to let it go.
this also goes back to that kind of us versus them in group out group thinking. We probably should do a whole episode on in group out group thinking because, like, it really is an interesting thing to explore what is happening in the brain and the journey it takes us down. But, it is human nature, by the way, to do this in group out group thinking. So you have got to be intentional to take yourself out of it. We all get caught up in it. But, when somebody is a part of a group that is pitted against the group that you identify with, whatever they say comes with all of this extra story or
Yeah.
baggage that you've made up. And one of the ways to kind of recognize that is when you're doing this polarized thinking. Things are either this way or that way. Everybody in that camp thinks this way about these things. And you're not at all thinking about what are the things we agree on, which is usually most of the time, some commonality, but you're only talking about those polarizing things, or you're making really complex issues, boiling them down into something that's just black or white, binary. Those are like some good ways to understand, hey, I'm in this in-group, out-group thinking, and because they are a part of my out-group, I've assigned this whole story about who they are, that they don't care about people, that, all of these things, they're here to ruin my world. You just see this in politics all the time. And the only people that it serves are the politicians. It does not serve the people. This
So
is,
when you start speaking in large general statements,
yes.
you may want to evaluate where you're coming from.
Yeah, because it's really important to get that fact versus opinion and then control your inputs. I think that's really important. How many times has my husband told me this week, maybe you should just put your phone away for a little bit? And I'm like, yes, but I have something to say and I am here to say it. And that's important. It is important. I've been working on finding my voice
Yeah.
and speaking up, which I know seems weird for people that know me. You think that I always speak up, but often I try not to say things that I think that are going to, you know, cause other people angst, yet then I'm not being true to myself. And like I'm never trying to cause angst for other people. And so it is this like, I'm not saying bury your head in the sand. I'm not saying, quit all your social media if that's not what you want to do. What I am saying is recognize when it's too much, or have that partner or that person in your trusted circle that can tell you, maybe it's time to put that away for now. Because I'm noticing that your energy is starting to really change.
Well, and I don't think we talked about this, but that day, I think it was like on September 11th, whenever I was experiencing all of my big feelings, and I had told you like what my process was getting into the office, and you were like, maybe you shouldn't have been like listening to so much news, and maybe you shouldn't have been scrolling on socials. Like, we already know it's a heavy day. Like, and you did not say it that way. You said it much kinder and much more covertly.
I was much more passive about it. Let you kind of draw out the message.
Correct. And so
Good on
then
me.
when I was reminiscing on it, I was like, wow, maybe I should have done that.
Well, and I think it's about being intentional. Like, so some of the advice is don't start your day with panic and don't end your day with despair. So if you start your day like I did this morning, pulling your phone out and going, oh, what crazy things have happened in the news overnight? Or you end your day laying in bed going, oh my gosh, like what's going on? You can do that, but it may just not set you up for the kind of energy that you would like to have.
Yeah.
Is it going to change what's happening out there? Like, that's the question. Is it going to change what's happening? No. So, if you put some boundaries around some of these activities, then you might be more effective at actually making a difference in the world the way that you want to. And it's really hard, guys, because this is something I am really struggling with right now. So, I'm not saying I have got it down. I'm just saying, like, practice and repeat.
Yeah, for sure.
You can also borrow regulation. And I do want to be really clear here. This is not about emotional dumping. And there is a difference. Emotional dumping is not healthy. This is something that I realized, I don't know, maybe a year ago or maybe a little more, that I had learned to kind of do. I kind of had this circle of we would just do this where it's like you call somebody and you just literally dump everything on them. And then you kind of walk away. Like, that's not cool. But different is to be in a space where you actually are trying to get to a different place and you have your kind of people that you can talk to, where you say, like, oh my gosh, I'm really freaking out about this. I don't want to freak out about it anymore, but I can't get myself there. I know you have been that person for me many times, Chris. And like often it revolves around a work situation. I remember, I've told this story before. I remember very specifically standing in my dining room, pacing, freaking out about something that happened. I can't remember what the thing was. It was probably not that big of a deal. That my whole world was ending. I was definitely in that doom spot of like, this is a career limiting move. Everything is going wrong. And you said to me, it was like 4:30 or something. You said, the first thing I need you to do is walk over to your bar and grab a drink of whiskey and take a drink. Okay. And we don't condone like drinking to manage your emotions, but like it was a funny, like lighthearted way to
But we
help
had to
me
disrupt. We had to
yeah,
disrupt the doom spiral you were in.
help me understand like all right, this is not serving you. And then we proceeded to kind of like calm the energy down because you remained so calm. You seemed really confident, like it was going to be okay, whether you were or not. You seemed really confident about it. And kind of talked to me through it. And then you were like, all right, well, you're not allowed to call anybody and try and fix this tonight. And knowing me, like I cannot sit. I can. I've learned better how to do it, but it's really hard to sit with something that's stressing me out. I just want to like fix it, like texting that friend in the middle of the night and going, I'm really sorry for this thing that I said that was super, uncomfortable. I didn't mean it. And they were like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Did you say that? That's so weird. You just want to fix it. And you had told me in this instance, like, don't you're not allowed to call anybody until tomorrow. And then I woke up the next day and I like had all of my wits back about me. So that like arc of the emotional wave,
Yeah.
you got me to figure out how to get my mind somewhere else. Sometimes that's like just go play video games, like do something, go out with some friends, do something that's going to get your mind off of it, distract yourself, and then come back to it. Take a walk near people, listen to a soothing voice, be around a steady presence, call your grounded friend like I did. Borrow your regulation from somebody else if you cannot find it yourself. There is no shame in that. Does not mean dumping on somebody, but it does mean saying, I need help.
But also, if you feel like you can't be that for somebody, say it.
Oh, yeah.
Because then you're just going to feed into each other's
Yeah.
emotional
It's okay
wave.
to be like, you know what? I'm really stressed right now and I love you. I think we need help.
Yeah. Let's bring in another person. No, but I love that you said calm, because this next one is having that signature energy. So it's that energy that you want to be known for. And I do, for me, it's that calm. I do want people, after engaging with me, to walk away feeling calm, whether that's because they showed up in a high stress situation or in a tense moment, whether it was because they don't know what the right next steps were and just needed to talk to someone. I want them to walk away feeling a sense of calm. And again, this isn't like a fake feeling, and I'm not like trying to get people to like push their troubles away or go drink their troubles away by any stretch of the imagination. I just think that whenever you are intentional about how you want people to walk away from interactions with you, they can. And so if I have that kind of authority in a situation, I want to use that for good. And I think most of us would want to.
Yeah. I think like the biggest thing here, if you take nothing else away from this conversation, the biggest thing is just knowing whether your world is heavy right now. And I think for all of us, we can say whatever you think or believe, it feels tense and heavy. We are allowed to feel that, but we don't have to live in panic as a lifestyle. We don't we have agency, we get to choose. And you don't always choose that first feeling that comes in, but you get to choose what you keep with you. You get to choose what you tell yourself. You get to choose how you show up for other people. And it doesn't mean you have to choose what you aspire to all the time. Like give yourself the space to just be a human.
Right.
But it does mean that like we have agency over our energy, and you don't have to just be at the whim of what is going on in the world. You don't have to let everybody else dictate how you're going to feel, whether you're going to have a good day or a bad day, whether it's going to be a good year or a bad year. You don't have to just hang on for the next, person to come into office or the next, job to have or whatever. Like things can be crummy around you, and you can still choose to have a different energy. So I think that's just the biggest thing is reminding you, like, take your power back. We have agency. You can own your own energy. And it doesn't mean that you have to live in some make-believe world of magical thinking where you don't know what's going on. You don't have to hide from the world, but you just don't have to be dictated by it.
Right. You have choice here. You do have some control. And in the places where you do have that control, set yourself up for success. So that way you can show up as your best self.
Yeah. Now, what really helps in creating this space for yourself is having good boundaries. And that is actually a conversation we are going to have coming up in a few weeks, right?
We are. So in a couple of weeks, we are going to be discussing a book by the name of Set Boundaries, Find Peace, A Guide to Reclaiming Yourself by Nedra Glover Tawwab. If you are watching us, I'm holding it up now.
Yes.
We've gotten feedback in the past that if we're going to talk about a book, that people want to know about it so that they can read it ahead of time. So we are sharing that. Actually, it's going to be the three of us. It's going to be you, me, and Ace is going to join us because we've all been on this boundary setting journey together, thanks to you.
Yes, I'm super excited. I really am to have this conversation. I got this book as homework to read, and it was a really good thing for me to work on. I then passed that homework along to share it as a group project with you and Ace. And I really am glad we did this together because for me it was helpful to not only experience a book but also talk about it and see like how you're applying it and
Right.
what it means to Ace. I also think it's really funny that the three of us all had a very different take on the experience of reading the book and the tone of the book. So we'll save that. So you'll have to tune in to find out who thinks what. But we'd also be super interested to know what you think about it because we had three very different takes. Although we all three, I think, have gotten something really meaningful out
For
of
sure.
out of this book, and boundaries are a super helpful thing. Definitely tune in for that. So that's coming up. And like until then, share with us. Like we would love to know how are you owning your energy? How does this show up for you? Is it tough? Do you have any tips for us? Because we've shared that this is something we are struggling with.
Right.
Depending on the platform you're listening to, you can leave a comment. You can reach out to us via email. Our email is connect chrisandjenitm.com. Leave us a voicemail or text us is preferably 940-278-8129. We would love to hear from you. We will listen to anything you have to say to us and find us on all of our socials.
Yeah, we're
Follow,
building a
subscribe.
community here.
Yeah.
So come help us build this community. So if you haven't already subscribed on whatever platform you're listening to us, subscribe so you're notified when our new episodes go live. You can follow us on all our social platforms. We're on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I'm sure I'm missing some, but it's Chris and Jen ITM. The ITM stands for in the morning.
Yeah. Fun fact, we do post little short videos that you don't get to see as part of the episode on YouTube and sometimes TikTok and Facebook and Instagram. YouTube, we do it pretty consistently. So if you're interested in just a little bit more about who Chris and I are or some of the shenanigans we get up to, we've even pulled the producer in this year, and then definitely check us out.
So until next time, be kind to yourself, to one another, and make it a great week.
Bye, y'all.